It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island. 'Cause nothing's better than a motion video.
It's Movie Time is produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John
And
DeSando.
I'm Wayne the Monkey Man Miller.
And this is, it's movie time.
John, what are we talking about today?
Well, I'll tell you, who isn't talking about monkeys these days?
Yeah, are we becoming a planet of the apes?
Yeah.
We have monkeys and big monkeys like Kong and monkeys to come.
Our next president may very well be a great representative.
Yeah, the simian race, whatever.
Anyway, we are never political,
No.
except we get a little bit snarky now and then.
Oh, definitely.
Just because we have fun. But we're talking about Monkey Man.
Yes.
Now, you were having, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be my guest for the Planet of the Apes movie coming up.
I would hope so.
And what was the previous one we had with monkeys?
Well, King Kong.
And King
King
Kong.
Kong and Godzilla.
Yeah, all right. So,
And we've done, I think, a Planet of the Apes a couple, 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah,
when it first
yeah,
came out. And that one looks good.
well, the big deal about Monkey Man for me is that it is directed by and starring Dev Patel.
Yes.
Who's also a writer.
Yes.
He actually one of the let me see, he was the one who wrote the story for this.
Yes.
And he has two writers with him, and I think he is a significant player in the motion picture industry at this point.
At this point, and with more to come, and the guy's in a relatively young man.
Yeah. He reminds me a little bit of Adam Driver.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At height, and in fact, he even played in the Green Gowan and the Green Knight. He played
Yes.
a couple of years ago, which was quite a bit different change for him, but he did a nice job.
Well, and he also reminds me of another Indian actor that I haven't seen for a while that was very good, and you might remember him in the movie The English Patient. He was the Indian soldier that had kind of a love affair with the woman, Naveen, and I can't remember his last name, but anyhow.
Well, let's talk about him when we get into our podcast.
Oh, well.
Because this is an interesting movie that we need to help people with.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure that they're going to appreciate I shouldn't say that we have 75% of our audience is college educated. It's not as if they can't understand, but they might have certain feelings about these slasher type of movies. Slasher or what?
The action thriller revenge movies that has become, a genre that we have talked about a number of times.
And we will do that again in our podcast if we don't get to it now.
Yeah.
We're talking revenge with a capital R.
Yes.
Good gosh. Set it up. And this is always a mistake with you. They ask you to do that.
The historian in me,
Yeah,
I like to
know.
go into detail, but I won't.
But you're right.
But the movie starts out with a guy who regularly gets beaten up in the fight club circuit in the underground of what passes for Mumbai, India. And he wears a gorilla mask, he gets beaten to a pulp, and little by little we find out his backstory, that he was really an orphan, and he came from one of these forced communities in India, and he, as a young boy, had witnessed the murder by a policeman as they were driving the people out of their village, and there's more to be said about that, but anyhow, this police officer kills his mom, and he decides to get revenge when he grows up, and he's not much of a fighter.
No.
But then I tell you, there are some set pieces. Every time, John, that we review a movie like this, I keep saying, my God, how can it be done any better or any more violent, or the choreography of the fight scenes? And then something like this comes along.
Let me just say two things about what your introduction to this. First of all, he is doing a version of the Hanuman
Yes.
mythology in Hindu
Exactly.
mythology,
Yep.
who was a monkey commander
Yep.
in Hindu mythology.
Yeah.
And we're not foolish enough to attempt to get into that. To make it
I read a review that did go into
Oh.
it, and I tell you, and I thought I knew some of world history, but boy,
Yeah.
that threw me for.
so much of this
Yeah.
parallels that mythology, but it's
Yeah.
not necessary to know it. It's just interesting because Patel is no small potatoes when it comes to making a show like this. He has got layers of meaning
Yes.
that will make it worthwhile for you to put your time in. All right, so we have him wreaking revenge, and as you said, he's just a tyro at this business.
Yes.
And he has one gig that he thinks he's going to get his commander, he thinks he's going to get his police captain or whoever it was who burned his mouth, and it's just a mess.
Yeah.
It's through a kitchen and everywhere,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
he's just getting beaten.
But then, you got to tell you, John, and one thing, then it gets in, there's a bit of a lull in the movie when he's taken in by this group of, it's almost a mystical group, and probably in the podcast I'll speak a little bit more what reminds me.
But they are transgender.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're kind of a mythological type of group. And I found a lot of parallels with the movie we did recently, the second Dune movie,
Oh,
to this one.
Oh,
A young guy
good one,
seeking
good
revenge. The people in charge are very corrupt, very evil. There's the downtrodden underclass, which is not surprising because there's a lot of history, recent history, current history going on in this movie that parallels the current history going on in India right now.
and and Patel has a film here that also crosses borders, because in our own country, in the U.S., the rich are getting richer.
Yes.
And the poor are definitely not getting richer.
Yes.
They're getting poorer.
Exactly.
And so that together with the caste system in India.
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes the parallels that Patel, I think, very definitely does. And you're talking about his fighting. And I have to say, I think he goes nose to nose with John Wick on this business.
All right, John Wick, but also a number of the other ones that,
Oh, yeah.
That we've
We
seen.
will talk about, yeah.
Yes.
But still, it's got that Wick, and I think it may be better than Wick, and I'll tell you why. There's much more heart in this.
Yes.
And I realize the cheap way and the way they do it is to flashback.
Right.
In numerous flashbacks to him and his mother and her teaching him the mythology out in the forest and all that, and just setting us up.
But John, because since you mentioned Wick, and of course a lot of these revenge movies, it's somebody who's retired from they were like a professional assassin, killer, fighter, and they've retired. This one, though, in a lot of ways, kind of reminds me of a movie I think we reviewed called Silent Night. The guy is not a professional, but he trains. There's more. I found also more so with the Rocky series of movies.
Yes, that's good too.
Because of how he trains himself. But he really wasn't that good of a fighter at first. But then he trains himself, and a really cute scene is he's punching a bag and the drummer, and he gets this rhythm of how to punch the bag.
Yes.
And so it always reminded me, though, of all the Rocky movies. Starts out that he's not very good or whatever, becomes a revenge flick, especially in the third and fourth Rocky movie, but a revenge flick. As he trains himself again to become a lean, mean fighting machine.
Yeah, and this is the point where it shares with the other major revenge films that we talk about. They almost always, it's just a part of that genre.
Yes.
They almost always have a training sequence. And I never tire of them. They always seem to be just a little bit different, but they make their point better than talking about it. About how much it takes to do this, and to remind us that these actors who make millions of dollars spend hours a day training themselves to become ripped, and we're going, wow, can you believe
which
that?
Patel's done.
Yeah.
And the Roadhouse movie, the Jay Gyllenhaal.
Oh, yeah,
is in
Gyllenhaal,
now,
yes.
too. The same thing.
Yeah.
The guy, I remember him as a scrawny kid in
No,
movies,
yeah.
and now he's a muscle toned.
You're right. I think there was a previous movie where he was, so he
Yeah,
may have kept it, but
Yeah.
still, they're phenomenally ripped and and it makes the visual point. I mean, I really like it. It's not like we're kind of like idolizing these
Yeah.
people. It is a part of what they do, and I'm reminded how much it takes to get to the point where they are now. And that's every morning getting up and probably spending hours. You don't get abs like that. Thinking about it.
And professional training. Somebody there, a fitness trainer,
Yeah.
that knows exactly. Because one thing, it's not only because those fight scenes, you have to be in great shape just to do them, even though it's a movie.
And
even though it's fictional.
And I like that too, because with all of our CGI
Yes.
contraptions, when it comes down to it and you watch it, you know that he's doing some of that. Like a ballet. He's
Yeah.
got the steps that he needs to do and really has to be in shape to pull that off. And Wick is the best example
Yeah.
in that the steps
Yeah.
sequence. And the reason
Yeah.
John Wick's knocking out every guy at every step
Yeah.
going up the hill, or down the hill. It was really fascinating to see. So my hats off to Patel.
Yes.
And he could in his lifetime he could be just an actor
Yeah.
and do well.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's taken off to be a director, and you mentioned the shots, and I think you're so right. We even mentioned it as we got into the films. Holy gosh, look at the shots.
Yes.
And he'll go along the floor. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He follows shoes.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Ian and I wonder, John, how much the movie was made for. Because in reading one review, it wasn't made in India, it was made in Indonesia.
Ah.
And they're debating when to open the movie because it's going to be controversial when and if they even open it in India.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because
Hindu,
it's really kind of knocking the hit. Even though the Patel's Hindu, even his character is Hindu.
Let's talk about that. I know where you're going. Let's talk about the podcast.
Okay.
And so we're going to go to Back Talk. Before we do, what do you advise our audience?
I would recommend it. I bet if you like a movie, it starts out kind of slow, a little bit, during this train, and stuff like that. But boy, when it gets into some action scenes, they are extended and they are brutal. If you like that, definitely go see it.
It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if